Rage Elementals, DWEDM, Mongo, and time to pay the daddy tax. Hello, crawlers, and welcome to the final episode of Book 1 of our Dungeon Crawler Carl read-along.
What is DWEDM?
What does it stand for? It is Death Watch Extreme Dungeon Mayhem.
Okay.
The Vice Pres show.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. At my day job, there's so many acronyms that fly by that I don't even bother to learn them anymore. I just love that you're like, and welcome to the final episode of the first book. Like anybody who's not liking it's like, oh, thank God. Oh, no.
Yeah, I saw Martin's life flash before his eyes.
So for you, people are elated that they're finally done with having to listen to us, not that it's over and they're sad.
Right.
Okay.
Martin's like, oh, God.
I see how this is going for you.
What the hell did I agree to?
Oh, man, this is good.
You like that?
Yeah.
Since we're plugging our sponsors.
There's no sponsors.
This is Altstat Brewery out of Fredericksburg. It's a German-style India Pale Ale. Anyway.
I was giving up on the IPAs, but it's pretty good.
It's a really good one.
Yeah. We are now at the closing chapters of Book 1. This is going to cover chapters 39 through the end, which it has chapter 47, and then there's an epilogue. Then there might be even another little bit after that.
Yeah, the credits are usually done with a little bit of pizzazz.
And once again, we are doing this via the audiobook, which I think is also important because my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that the book itself has another whole passage in it.
Not the original versions of the books, but the ones that are currently being released with the hardcovers. Those have a little story at the end.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I haven't read this, so
Neither have I.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought for sure you had.
I have the books. I
Yeah.
just haven't started reading those ending bits.
Oh,
well,
but
we'll have to
I'm-
do that as a separate whole thing anyway.
yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So before we dive into discussing this, we wanted to do a quick recap of what we talked about last episode, anything that we missed. We did have a couple of comments. One person commented on YouTube that we never actually discussed the bomb planting that Carl does on the corpse in the hallway for Frank Q.
And Maggie Mai.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
I didn't remember. I thought we kind of did, but maybe we didn't.
I have a memory of discussing it with you. Maybe we did it for the Patreon, but I don't know, man. Like I could have sworn that you cut it out because I was like, we had this whole conversation about Carl planting a bomb in a rat for Frank Q and Maggie Mai to find.
I don't remember us talking about it.
Okay.
Me saying that means nothing.
The only thing I really cut out is all the offensive stuff that Rubio says throughout the episode. I usually just edit that out.
Oh, wow.
I say a lot.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a short episode. At the end. We also had a couple other comments I wanted to read. This is from Asakurayo. Sorry if I butchered that.
I'm pretty sure you did.
So this is in relation to us discussing that Carl has been reading the voices of the other people in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And they said in the new version, I guess they released an updated version of the audiobook series, The Immersive Tunnel, which has like a full ensemble cast reading all the roles.
Really?
They do update that and they change how the voices are being read.
It isn't a new version of the audiobook. It's a whole separate production that's meant to be like a radio drama on Sound Booth Theater Live or Sound Booth. I'm not sure. There's an app for Sound Booth, and they've put together a full cast recording with sound effects, and it's pretty insane. Like there's a lot of audio. It's called the audio immersion tunnel.
Yeah.
There's a ton of like sound effects and music and stuff. It's all custom, but I think they're like most of the way through the first book, or maybe they've just finished the first book recording that, and it's going to take a long time for them to get through the whole series. And we're just going to do the audiobooks like that. Those are all out. Yeah.
Another interesting bit is I was asking Rubio about the process of how Matt Dinneman wrote these books and released them previously, because we have an Act 1 and an Act 2 in the first book, which is a little bit different than later iterations. Sorry if that's a spoiler. But James Shaw, 1824, points out that chapters 1 through 28, which was Act 1, were first published on the website Royal Road by Matt Dinneman for free. And then once he set up a Patreon, he started posting additional chapters behind a paywall, and that's kind of how that started evolving as a slower drip release of chapters before they were all kind of put into a book. Mm-hmm. He did that up through book 6, and then probably got a publishing deal that changed a little bit of how he navigates that. That's just a guess.
So what got published for free?
I guess the first act up through before right when they go down to level 2.
I think for a lot of the first books, he would eventually put them for free on Royal Road for people to read. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that works out for you.
Spoilers, it did.
Yeah. And then I saw another interesting comment we got was from Decongle1, who said, I typically know when I'm sold on a series when while I'm listening to the first book, I'm looking up the series on Audible and buying at least the next book. And for this person, that happened right when they read about the meth dealing llamas. So
okay.
That's where it hooked to them.
That was the first time I laughed in the whole series. Like that was like a moment that I was like, okay, this is gonna be funny when like they kill the llama and they loot meth from it.
That is one of those points in the book where you have to decide: am I going forward with this, or is this where I step out?
Am I on board, or I'm too mature for this? Well, thank you guys for your comments. We love reading those, and we'll be on the lookout for more. I think the best place to comment is going to be on YouTube, but we're also checking on Spotify. I guess Rubio's probably also scouring Reddit for if you post anything.
Constantly.
Desperately. But now it's time for us to move on to our Previously On.
Previously on chapters 39 to the end of book 1 of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Carl and Donut take down the Rage Elemental with a spectacular hallway goblin motorcycle chase, full of bombs and oil slicks. They're dragged onto a brutal dungeon game show, Death Watch Extreme Dungeon Mayhem, where Carl turns the tables, humiliating the host and saving fellow crawlers. After stomping a gerbil, they adopt a feral baby raptor named Mongo and brace themselves to descend to the 3rd floor.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the book and to the question for you, Martin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of this section, but also what do you think of the book?
Well, I'm like I said with the last episode, I'm fully into the book. I'm not having any stumbling. I'm just going with it. It's fun. The battle with the Rage Elemental I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
That was quite awesome. If nothing hooked me before, that certainly did. And then the longer we go on, the more we're finding out about this world. We get to the Maestro show, and then it opens up a whole new, worlds within worlds of what's going on.
That was the moment that really made me go, oh, I'm going to stick with this. Like that, the Maestro show starts out really silly and, with all the glurps and stuff. I'm like, oh, come on. And then Death Watch Extreme Challenge happens, and then like, it's just such a rich little set piece in the book.
Yes. The idea that, the whole mystery of what's going on with Agatha too. That's a whole, like, there's so many different avenues that are opening, these portals of like, oh man, what's behind this and what's behind that. So there's a lot, you're building so many different mysteries where you're like I got to stick around to find out what this is about. Mm-hmm. And I got to, there's so much. So yeah, I'm here for it to get answers to these questions.
And unlike the worst TV series of all time, Lost,
I had a feeling that was coming up. I could smell that.
These get payoffs.
Okay. That's good to know too.
Satisfying.
Because much like Lost, they're throwing out a lot of questions.
Yeah. I think just like Lost, it'll stick the landing. Why are you guys laughing at this?
If it's two dudes playing chess at the end of this, I'm done.
All right. It's all about two brothers, and one is good and one is evil.
But wait, no, they're all dead.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it? I don't remember. It's Lost.
Well, they go to church at the end and everything's fine.
Yeah, it's nice.
No, the one kind of stumbling block, well, not stumbling block, but thing that I wasn't crazy about, and John, you and I had a little discussion about this before, was how it ends on such a, not just a non-climax, but more of a cliffhanger type thing. I mean, I know there's too much to wrap up, but it really had that feeling of to be continued. And I was like, I'm not a big fan of that, because I remember with the Harry Potter books, with the first 3 definite endings. And it's like, but I like it enough to come back. And then you get to the end of the Goblet of Fire, and that's a to be continued. And I was like, well, I feel like I just read half a book.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a personal thing for me.
And these, I agree with you. These don't, some of these books do have endings, but all of them are kind of treated like an episode of a TV series. You know,
Don't you feel like he grew to love and respect his cat as an equal, and that's enough of a closed book ending to the story? Isn't it all about a man's journey to... No? I don't. You're right. It doesn't really... It makes you go, gotta buy the next one.
Yeah.
I hope that at the end of this story, we grow to appreciate you.
It will take time. It will take... I've known you guys for well over a decade. It's still taking time.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump on to talking about how this last section progresses, and let's go a little bit more linearly today. Starting with the Rage Elemental. We left off on a cliffhanger with our 3rd episode, where they were trapped in the safe room with the Rage Elemental outside and no Mordecai to help.
Yeah, pounding on the door.
Yeah.
Right. Like just claws and teeth ready to get whoever it can.
And I totally couldn't remember how this one resolved itself.
Right, because it's a real moment where there's no way you can see that it can resolve itself, right? This thing is way more powerful for any of them to take out as a group or individuals. But if you were paying attention, there were little clues early on in how this could be resolved. And Carl kind of knew it.
It was also Imani, I think, that pointed out, like, if you open the door, we can, it can't come in here, because if it does, it'll attack us and teleport. And that was the whole trick and mechanic that would allow them enough time to lead a chase down the hallways.
Sure. But it was also Carl recognizing, like, this could be a flaw. And I'm not going to say anything, because if I do, they'll change the rules.
Yeah, they'll patch it.
Yeah.
And that was the exploit, that if any creature goes down the stairwell, it dissolves and is no longer a threat.
Yeah, he learned that from one of the goblin shamankas.
Yeah.
But
what's really fascinating about this whole sequence is that they do the chase. They've made all of these bombs that they're dropping along the way and slowing the speed of this Rage Elemental. They're even using this magical chain that Imani had to have it catch on things and also slow its chase of them. And they almost kill it.
Yeah. One of the things that Carl realizes at some point is that his Jugaboom took off like 25% of that thing's health. So keep bombing it,
Right.
Yeah. Well, at that point where his Jugaboom takes off 25%, it's like we probably actually could kill this thing. Except it heals itself.
It heals itself quickly.
Yeah, and it took me to a moment in Godzilla. Was it zero?
Minus zero.
Minus
zero.
Yeah. What the hell was that called?
I think it's that one.
Yeah, minus. Well, anyway, where they're actually like bombing it and it's going down. I was like, good. And it just starts healing. I was like, oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
That's not fair at all.
I saw that movie and I loved it. And I still also can't remember the name of it.
-1.
-1.
But I
had to pull it out. It is a point where the Rage Elemental goes down the stairs. It dissolves right as it looks like it's probably on the cusp of dying. And they don't get any experience. They miss out on experience here. They seem to have missed out on potential experience for setting a trap that has a bomb go off. in the rat that we talked about that we didn't, I guess, talk about previously.
Right.
But I feel like what is learned from this is that he's a level 4 and he could take down a level 93 if he knows an exploit.
Right.
And I don't think Carl of later books would sit on that as much. I think he's probably being cautious here. I wonder if he would. Do you think that? I bet when he's like, I could think of already a dozen ways where I could trigger a P event that causes a rage elemental that you just like, it triggers like a cascade of bombs or something.
Yeah, we can't talk about this here.
Oh,
we can't talk about. Like, I have an answer for you, but I can't give it to you.
Okay. I don't know if that's.
What are these later books you speak of? I've only read the first one.
There's more.
It was a fun way to problem solve that one, and it was actually a really exciting read for me as like a written chase sequence in a book.
Yeah.
Because like swerving all around these giant, disgusting larva hornet things in the hallways is also. Oh, those things are evolving, and that's another looming threat. So as soon as you get rid of this, now you have to deal with that. It's all really fun.
Although it seemed like they had those things figured out. Like we're focused on the rage elemental. These other things, these hornets and grubs, they're incidental.
Right. Even though there's like so many of them.
Oh yeah, so many of them. Yeah.
They're also ways that Carl and Donut have kind of devised to be barriers to the rage elemental. Like they're obstacles for it as well.
I guess, do you, when you read these, feel any tension, or is it kind of like, well, you know the hero's going to survive?
You know, it's a mix. I mean, look, there's the books, and while I've not read them, I've seen the covers. So there's certain things I know, like Carl is never gonna get pants or shoes, and
which breaks all of our hearts.
Yeah, and him and Donut are gonna always make it through this. However, with the rage elemental, they did the thing that it was a real all is lost moment where they're going up against something where you're like, as a reader, you're like, I don't see how you could possibly get out of this. So to have them do it is full of tension, and it's exciting, and it's a real payoff for a reader. I always think, I don't know if it's just a personal thing, but it's always satisfying to read a book where a character is smart enough to think their way out of something.
Yeah.
Also, isn't it validating to you, the reader, when the author sprinkles in enough clues that you're like, oh, I get how they got to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to also play a little bit of like problem solver detective alongside them. And like, oh yeah, that's right. In the earlier chapters, we learned that they can't go down in the dungeon. And then we also know that he has this motorcycle that allows him to go fast. And there's like all these other little components that like have all culminated.
And it's also, for me, one of the things that really kind of sealed the deal on me reading the rest of this whole series, because I was like, oh, you're going to do that so early on. Like, if this is like the first book out of, several, that means that if you're a good writer, the next few things that they're going to encounter, might be surmountable physically, but what are they going to do to the characters, right? Like, there has to be some other stakes that are introduced that might be emotional, that might be trauma-based, that might be this, that, and the other, that if you play your cards right as a good writer, you will start to utilize, because you've just given away the game that, if you play your cards right, you're going to be able to survive anything, but
it's actually really low stakes in the next book. It's just a bunch of stomping mushrooms and turtles the whole time.
it's Mario. It's claw machines. And do they get the phone?
Well, I think the big thing is the buildup of other characters. Because if we know our two main characters are going to survive, then it's all about us caring about all the other characters who are not guaranteed to survive, and what are their fates going to be.
They're expendable.
But John, as you point out, physically we know that Carl and Donut survive, but mentally and emotionally, we don't know what kind of shape they're going to be in.
Yeah, how does their relationship change? How do they react to certain things?
Yeah, and Carl is getting stronger, but he's also kind of fragile, at least emotionally, just because of his humanity.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's a decent person who cares. And, the more you're into an environment where it's like, that's a liability, he's still holding on to it.
And anytime he's faced with a difficult situation, something that is, physically, just mentally distressing to him or scary, he just pushes it away. Every single time he sees the number of survivors go down, he just goes, oh, I can't deal with that right now. And he just like buries it again.
Yeah.
Every single time something like that happens, he delays his reaction.
Yeah.
I think that burying your emotions, very relatable. Caring about humanity, less relatable. We talked about the ramifications for Zev for her shouting out to Carl, hey, there's a rage elemental coming. You got to run and get in the safe room right now.
Yeah, she got put in a timeout.
And we see that. We get introduced to a new PR rep from the Kuatin named Mukta.
Oh, fuck Mukta.
Mukta is like, oh, I decided to put you on this other show that tracks really well with. We find out it's a trashy, exploitative TV show called Death Watch Extreme Dungeon Mayhem.
It is like the Jerry Springer show for tweens.
100%. Like Carl is looking at an audience of aliens. He's like, these are 12 and 13-year-olds. He can, even as an alien, you can tell what a 12 and 13-year-old looks like. They're insufferable.
Yeah, by how they act.
Yeah.
With a lot of, and it's more 12 and 13-year-old boys.
Oh, yeah. We have daughters. They would never.
Well, it's just so hyper stupidly toxic masculinity going on that show, and just even reading about it, just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Glurp glurp.
Yeah.
I think that this was I agree with you, Rubio. This was a turning point for me as well, because this marks two different things in the book. One, we get our actual first face of a villain. We see someone who we can channel some of our hatred into, because up until this point, it was a system, and we thought Zev could potentially be that person for us. And then Zev ends up being a pretty relatable victim of circumstances.
By the end of the scene that she's introduced in, it's like, oh, like we're gonna love Zev forever. And
I think a little bit by proxy, Mukta isn't someone that we can also just like hate so much that we can be like, you guys suck.
Yeah.
But Maestro, 100%, we can hate that person.
I found it hard to hate him in as much as he was so pathetic.
Right.
I have no love for him whatsoever.
But he's not worth your hate.
Yeah. He's not worth my hate.
I think that him playing toys with people's lives and making a mockery of it is fully worth my hate. I was like, this is the prime audience for why this construct is awful. This type of person that has this bloodlust and wants to monetize and profit off of that is villainy.
Oh, so now you make me look bad.
Yeah, we're both assholes.
No, I don't like him.
No. There's nothing to like about him. He's just it took. I felt like it didn't take that much for Carl to expose him as a chump.
Oh yeah. I don't think he's a worthy adversary.
Yeah, and he's a prince, so he's royalty. He's grown up with privilege that he's exploited and not even used well. And then there's, we see that like the rest of his family, they're probably the ones to really hate.
Yeah, I can definitely see that as well. I also love that this is a big point for Carl, because we see him. I think this is what really grabbed me in the book. We see him stand up to a bully in a way that like charges me as the reader. I'm like, fuck yeah, give it to him.
Yeah.
Like he pumps the brakes and goes, put us on air right now. And you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what he does. And he's like, Donut, shut up. This is me. I'm going to handle this situation.
Not only does he do that, but he does it in the most humiliating way for the bully possible.
Yeah.
On his own show, turns his own audience on his own side, and it's just beautifully done.
This is why dads love watching Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher always wins.
I would tell you something. Everybody loves watching Jack Reacher. It goes across demographics.
He stands up to the bully, and he always wins. He's a big guy who checks out and says, you're a bully, and I'm going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Jack Reacher.
I just remembered right before he goes on the show in the safe room, one of my favorite descriptions for an item I forgot to mention. In the safe room, they get some mana toast.
Oh, yeah.
And the description for the item is, this is toast. It refills your mana. That's it. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You get more and more of the sass of the AI.
Yeah, and it's a good setup for the next like big fuck you of having to go on this show.
Yeah.
Against their will.
It also didn't that get a chuckle out of Carl too?
I think so.
So it's kind of the relationship of him and the AI is starting to grow a little bit. I like that.
So the thing that leads up to Carl standing up to a bully is this Death Watch segment with these, there are 4 people. One of them has just gotten his face sprayed with acid. And then there's Lina, Li Jun, and Zhang. And they're in this situation that's going to result in their deaths.
Yeah.
And the show is they freeze time, take 2 of the people out, and give them an opportunity to win like some teleport points.
Morning Zoo radio.
Yeah, to like exchange places with somebody that's going to die.
Yeah.
In their party. And that just makes Carl go nuclear. And he's like, Donut, I'm going to talk this time. You shut up. I put us on the show. And that scene is so great. It's so good. So much fun to watch too.
It's not only is it fun to watch, but Carl's saying, "Hey, you know what? Put me in there." And you're like, "Yeah, I just basically killed a level 93 rage elemental.
Yeah,
I can handle this."
Yeah, and the audience is going nuts for it. They're like, "Yeah, put him in there. We'd love to see what happens." And Carl knows, like he says, like, I know that he's not going to do it, but I also know that it takes a little time for them to start time up again. So he very quickly tells them, hey, you need to do this, this, and this, and this. And then the maestro teleports the same people back without any like game. It's just like, okay, well, you're just going to go die. And they just do what Carl says, like look around, like grab your sister, let's go.
Yeah, forget the sword.
The bugs.
Yeah,
or
get the sword.
Bolts, right?
All 4 of them survive. And it further humiliates the maestro. It's so good.
I think it's evidence that that Carl like really resonates with 12 to 13-year-old boys. And I hope it's not too much of a spoiler. In the next book, he actually just leaves a dungeon and starts his own talk show for 12 to 13-year-old boys. He starts his own podcast. And it really takes off.
It's called
it's channeling your inner man.
Yeah, it's called the Rizzed Up Dab Machine.
Just another terrible influencer.
Yeah.
Stop it. So yeah, that whole sequence just ends up being so fucking great. And the culmination, he insults the maestro, and this results in...
calls him pork boy.
Pork boy. And this results in a viral video being created, which is called a snick, which is, think of it like a TikTok video.
It's an AI sex tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fanfic.
And it's of Carl getting on with Maestro, and it's humiliating to the Maestro. Carl's just kind of bemused by it, like, what?
It's humiliating for his whole family, which apparently is this very powerful royal family.
There's also implication that this isn't just someone online doing it. It might have been the AI making it.
Yeah.
Which is also really funny to me. I don't remember that part, but I love the idea that maybe the AI made that and put that out there to just further sow discord.
Well, what's funny is that it's so well made that even people close to him are like, "You sure you didn't really do this? It didn't really happen? No? Just checking."
Yeah. I think that Carl being media savvy, like Donut, in like a little bit of a different way, where like she can charm people and he can rile people up, makes them a great duo for whatever kind of situation they're put in.
It seems that he has a lot of instinct about power dynamics and how to, best leverage those to his advantage.
He's Andor. Ooh, Andor's really good, by the way. The second season is so good. And I feel like it's if you need supplemental material to go along with Dungeon Crawler Carl, Andor's perfect. Andor's perfect.
I like them both, but I never related the two together.
I think more and more you will.
Okay.
So we also get two other guests that pop up, Maggie Mai and Frank Q, and Carl kind of anticipates this, but he doesn't predict where that conversation is going to go. And I think as much as his appearance on there was seeming like a pure win for him up until this point, once he talks to them, he takes a bit of a hit.
Yeah, he does. Finding out that his booby trap, damaged their daughter more than anyone, who he didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
And that Maggie Mai wants to make it all about, you did this, you killed our daughter. And Carlos really is trying to like, you did this, but it was my bomb. And he's internalizing it so much. And you just want to reach out to him and go, buddy, don't stop blaming yourself.
Well, they also had their own Mordecai. Like everybody gets their, if you go to a training guild, you meet up with a trainer and somebody who puts you through kind of the rundown of how to survive the dungeon. And theirs told them that in order to survive, they have to kill other crawlers.
I feel like I would also like to point out, maybe I can play a clip from our episode last week where we were talking about the floating brain things and you guys being like, those are cool. I want more of those.
I kind of wanted to see more of those mind horrors, things that are just kind of floating around like jellyfish, but they're just brains.
Yeah.
Now we got them, guys.
Yeah, the mind horror.
And it turns out those mind horrors are like, oh yeah, kill other humans.
Yeah, that their dungeon guide was a mind crawler that told them, you need to kill other crawlers. A mind horror.
Mind horror. Yeah. It's brutal and puts a damper on otherwise a really good takedown of the Maestro. And so the Maestro gets a little bit of vengeance in pairing the two and leaving more stuff for Carl to have to contemplate and live with. He needs a therapist on the next floor.
Did we not? Okay, we didn't mention just now that the way that scene resolves after she gets damaged by Carl's bomb. Yvette is the little girl's name. Maggie and Frank's, we assume, daughter. Maggie chokes her to death. Like she's in pain, she's suffering, and Maggie gets on top of her and chokes her own daughter to death and then wails afterwards.
And we don't know why.
I know, and Carl doesn't know why either. He's like, she would have healed. What are you doing? Like, this is... And Maggie's like, I'm going to come after you and kill you and that fucking cat. She just vows vengeance for the rest of her waking days. And Carl doesn't understand what's going on. We don't understand what's going on either.
Right. Yeah. So you think there's more to it?
I don't know.
There's more.
Oh, okay. You guys read more. Because to me, I was like, okay, this is just some grief rationalization.
But I guess it is one of those questions of like, if you kill someone inadvertently, how culpable are you? I mean...
Right. I mean...
I think you're still held to account even if it's an accident in regular civil society, but of course within the construct of the dungeon, it's survival.
I love these big hard questions. We're going to solve them right here.
Well, if you kill someone inadvertently, but it was for self-defense from somebody else, then how much are you... I guess you're still on the hook for that.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I mean, this was him going on the offense, it feels like. Zev comes back, and she kind of reveals that, like, yeah, I got punished, but we're just gonna kind of move on from there. It was nice to have Zev back because I didn't know how long we actually end up sticking with whatever that dude's
Mukta.
name is. Yeah, he's
Mukta.
Yeah.
but having her back and having Donut happy. Oh yeah, we haven't really talked much about Donut so far in the ending chapters here. I think that's coming.
Yeah.
Well, Donut's big arc from this point is Mongo, her new, pet
Exactly.
velociraptor.
So we have one more boss battle, and this is the kobolds in this chamber, and you kind of think, or if you know D&D, you kind of think that a whole bunch of kobolds in a chamber is gonna mean like a dragon, because kobolds generally protect a dragon. Instead, we get kind of the opposite. We get a little gerbil.
Well, yeah, and kobolds in D&D are lizards.
Yeah.
And here they're like chihuahuas.
That would make me laugh out loud. Where Donut's like, so it's dogs riding dogs.
Like, to her, it was like the most horrific idea ever. Like, this is a mutation.
What's the type of dog she calls all dogs?
Cocker spaniel.
Okay, she hates Cocker spaniel. All dogs are Cocker spaniels, Sarah, and she hates them all. Yeah.
But does she get extra points for killing dogs?
She should.
I don't know. I wonder if she has like a boost.
I thought it was a thing.
Yeah.
It might be. Yeah. So I was saying this to you, Rabia, before we started recording, that in this book, I don't remember there being this much stomping until doing this reread. This is my first time doing a reread of this after finally getting through book 7. Carl stomps people all over the place in this book.
Not through the whole series. He's just a stomping machine.
And not only that, but this culminates in my favorite line, I think, at least in this section, which is, gotta pay the daddy tax.
Is that an expression? I've never heard that before, but they throw it around a lot.
I don't know if it's an expression outside of this, but now it is.
Okay.
Having to pay the daddy tax in this context means he has to pay the AI by stomping to death the final villain.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess I get I get the context for that.
Yeah, it's like an S&M, like kind of time to pay the daddy tax, like fulfill my
obligation,
my fetish. Yeah.
Well, or in the context of him and B, as Donut I think was implying was, I have to have sex with Carl to maintain this relationship. I have to pay the daddy tax so that it sustains my lifestyle or whatever. Whereas she was apparently sleeping with a bunch of other guys.
I know, which was why I was like, well, why with Carl?
But he's a daddy? Is that a good thing? I guess not
Was
necessarily.
he paying for things?
Yeah.
Can we do another show which is just a 40-year-old explaining things to the 50 and up crowd?
Bet. So yeah, he stomps this little gerbil.
Hey, that gerbil had it coming, and it wasn't so helpless.
Yeah, to be fair, that thing was a rocket of death.
Ralph, he crushes Ralph.
Oh, Ralph.
And that I guess has fully satiated this AI who has clearly expressed through numerous things throughout this book its fetish for Carl's feet. Making it that he like once he loses those Crocs and you got to stomp on stuff. I love that. To getting the pedicure kit, to now the final boss for this level for book 1 of this series is you have to stomp it to death.
Yeah,
is a tiny little stompable thing, and let's not gloss over the fact that when Carl stomps on it, the whole dungeon groans.
Shudders.
It has a sexually satisfied groan that it does.
I'd forgotten about that. You're right. It's so gross.
I forgot about that.
So gross.
But I think it's another important component in how we consider this book, because Carl is presented as kind of this everyman. He's a regular Joe he's bigger than I guess average, but and he has a little bit of like fighting expertise from a little bit of a military background, but otherwise you would think there's a lot more other people that are going to be really qualified to do a great job and survive in the dungeon out of humanity. And he's one of these top people, but he's also kind of the pet of the AI.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we haven't really run into that many crawlers.
True. And yeah, we run into people who are completely unprepared for anything like this. We get Frank Q and Maggie Mai, who seem to have, whether they're law enforcement or not, some kind of combat experience. But you need to not only have that, but also be, I guess, open-minded or nerdy enough to go with everything that's being thrown at you.
Right.
And he is somewhere in the middle.
He does talk about how he played a bunch of video games on the couch while Donut would like sit on him. So he understands video game mechanics.
And also, to be fair, on some of the recaps, we've seen other crawlers featured, like Le Movement, the African group of militants with the AK-47s, which by this time in the story, they've all died except for one.
Yeah.
And I think they said something about, they had the camera on him crying for like 12 minutes straight, and that was the end of that segment.
I guess my point would be like that if the AI is at all putting its thumb on the scale here, Jack Reacher doesn't stand a chance. If he came down there, it'd be like, we're not gonna have the prototypical hero. But I guess we kind of have that a little bit with Carl, right?
Oh, I don't know. Reacher seems like he can handle just about anything.
Reacher's the best.
Yeah.
Eating ice cream that isn't chocolate or vanilla.
I guess I was unfamiliar with this one.
Well, no. That was something in the most recent season. I don't know if you watched it, where he's with the kid he's kind of protecting, sorta, and he's like, get some ice cream. They got a pistachio flavor, and he's like, that's stupid. He says anything other than chocolate and vanilla is nonsense. It's just like, what?
Get out of here, Reacher.
I can't stop laughing about that every time I think about it.
I know people like that in real life. There's this one friend of mine who doesn't take any kind of condiments or anything on his burger. It's literally just, I just want the bread and the meat. And that's it. No cheese. What are you, crazy?
Really dry. No water, please.
Yeah.
Nothing to help get this down my throat. I'm going to die.
Yeah. Do you have any sand I can eat this with?
Anyway, you're not supposed to tell people about how I eat burgers.
Okay.
So we get to the special pet room.
Yeah, there's a room full of cages that have pets, and that's kind of their reward. Even like this whole section has been like a kennel, right? There are a bunch of cages with danger dingoes in them. And this is one of the ways that they kind of won the fight was Carl found out that if he fed one of these dingoes, like its marker on the map would show that it's now a friendly. And so he did that.
To them.
Yeah, he did that with all of the dingoes there, and they didn't attack him when they were released as like the final big trap, allowing him to smush the
Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph more quickly. Yeah, and in the inner sanctum of this boss room, this boss chamber, there are a bunch of cages with a bunch of different animals that they now have a key for that they looted off of Ralph.
And we see a couple of them as they walk by the cages, but there's like a ticking time clock for it. There's like a meatball one. What was it called? A tummy acher?
A tummy acher.
Get the tummy acher. Get the meatball. I was all excited about that. But they end up going with this pink feathered little lizard looking creature.
They say that it looks like a piece of raw chicken that somebody dropped in some pink feathers.
Which still sounds kind of cute.
Yeah.
And this is how they get the third member of their team, Mongo. Mongo, we end up finding at the end of the book, because of Audette, is a raptor. So they have a velociraptor now.
Not only is it a velociraptor, it's not a historically accurate velociraptor.
Right, they're like only like 2 feet tall or something.
It is a cinematically accurate velociraptor. It's like a Jurassic Park velociraptor. It's just a baby right now.
It's funny that they say that, because The cinematic ones are the ones that are all like lizardy and scaly, but scientifically they're like, well, they would actually have feathers and be colorful.
Yeah.
So I was like, this sounds more like an actual historically accurate velociraptor, just as a baby chicken.
Yeah, just scaled up.
Yeah,
because like regular velociraptors are about a dog size, I guess the size of a small dog. But in popular fiction, popular culture, they're huge.
Right.
And this is going to be a huge one if it survives.
Yeah, I mean, good. Wait, did you say if?
Well, they do talk. Mordecai does mention a lot. Like you need to like train him. You need to get him all set up because otherwise he's just going to run into danger and he's going to die. These things fight to the death, and it almost can't wait to just die.
Also, instead of naming it Mongo, they could have named it Bitey because that's all it wants to do is just
biting our nose.
Yeah, it constantly biting donut on the nose. But Mordecai says, like, listen, if you don't get this thing tamed and bonded, it's not following you to the next level.
It is interesting that there's kind of maybe a tone and pace shift that happens in these last chapters with them just kind of grinding away the last few hours that they have before they need to descend to the third floor and trying to get Mongo bonded.
Yeah, it's a weird shift because it goes from like crazy action to like, let's train a pet.
Yeah.
It's like a little Tamagotchi thing also.
Yeah, Tamagotchi.
It's like, okay, cute, weird. But yeah, they're building the team. And I did find that I was like, oh, I really want to just start the next book.
Yeah.
Like right away. But we are pacing ourselves.
We are.
There's a couple other lingering things I wanted to touch on. Carl's got a mantra that he repeats to himself quietly that even Donut's like, what are you saying? It's you will not break me.
Yeah.
He's kind of saying this to himself, I guess, a little bit. Like, yeah, convince yourself. Yeah, which just shows his inner turmoil. He's obviously being broken a little bit. Because people, normally we don't have to just say this to ourselves.
I mean, I do.
Normally we don't have to say this to ourselves. But then we also have the mystery, which you kind of talked about at the beginning of our episode here. Agatha.
Yeah.
He realizes when he looks in his inventory and looks at historically what items were the most valuable, even if they're no longer in his inventory.
Yeah, there's a new history tab that he has access to that lets him see everything that's ever been in his inventory. He's like, I want to see how, because he does that every so often. He checks to see what the most valuable thing he has is.
And Agatha had a whole bunch of like crazy weapons and shit in her cart. So,
an intertunnel communication device by Valte, a Valte Persis Shield Platinum Edition tech-based personal shield, and a Mag 3040 Valte Core pulse pistol. A pulse pistol.
Say that again.
Pulse pistol.
Dungeon crawl.
Yeah. Everybody's got like, oh, I've got jugs of moonshine I could burn something with. And crazy Agatha with her shopping cart has a pulse pistol.
So now what do you think of Agatha?
Well, so once again, he's like, hey, are you part of Valte and all that? She gives some answer where it's like, wait, I need you to explain that. And then they pulled the grant where, well, before answering that question, something's going to happen, so it didn't get answered.
Lost.
Yeah, right.
Well, apparently,
no question zone.
Apparently, while Carl was talking to her, they lost the tunneling feed. Like none of that footage was going out to the public when they were talking also.
So is one of the things she has like blocks communication? Maybe that's that intertunnel communication device?
She literally says, they already know I'm here. They just don't know what to do with me. So maybe it's a situation where they're just not showing her because that might be damaging in some way, or I don't know.
I mean, it's just a question of how did she get connected with them to get this equipment? And was she on Earth before this got started, it sent as a catalyst to start the fire to get everyone from Meadowlark outside.
Yeah, who the hell is Agatha?
This is one of the things I asked Rubio on our first Patreon episode, actually, that we did.
Yeah.
Was this very question. Hey, patreon.com/hellocrawlers. But I think that when we first started doing these episodes, I couldn't remember what was explained about Agatha in this first book, which this makes my goldfish brain makes it very fun to do a reread because I just don't remember this stuff.
Right.
But I didn't know that Agatha was presented within the first book as even more mysterious like this.
Well, she just seemed like she was, a crazy homeless woman that they were familiar with. She had to have been around for more than a day, quite a while for them to know her name, know who she was, and just be used to her coming around and just being chaotic and then going on.
But then there's also been a lot of little things sprinkled out throughout the book. Like she shows up, but then disappears for long lengths of time. And then she'll like be one of the first down the stairs. And then you won't see her until it's the next time to descend the stairs.
She's just doing speed runs.
And she is somehow like surviving. And she's like, now she's only like level 4, but she's still alive.
Yeah.
She did have to kill that one creature in the hallway.
And then she got edited out of one of the recaps.
Yeah.
Like she was under this thing with us and she isn't in the recap next to me where,
Oh, maybe she's like the old man in Squid Game where she's actually running the whole thing.
Oh, no.
Could be. I mean, Agatha is fascinating. And your question about whether or not she started the fire at Meadowlark, that's one that like I'm curious about too, because
they say that she started the fire. Like she was the barrel fire.
Whether she whether she started that fire for an intentional purpose that there's a little bit more importance with the group from Meadowlark.
You mean the Billy Jolie and start the fire?
just if that lends any sort of credence to one of the members of Meadowlark having a more integral role or something, and they need to be out of the building for something.
Right. But so many of them have died so far.
That's my lost brain getting all excited.
And okay, so there's so many that we left on the other level. We just said like they just decided to stay, and we're just gonna move on. And
they needed that person.
like we just assumed like, well, that level collapsed and they are dead, but we don't know that.
Yeah. Pop back up as a hoarder.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I think that brings us to the end of the book. They descend to the 3rd floor. They pop on Odette's show, and Odette has a little bit more advice for them.
Yeah. They talk with her about several things. First, they ask her about Mordecai. And like, what is this with Mordecai? He did not even want to hear your name. And she said, well, I'm not going to tell you everything right now. Let's just say that I pushed him too hard and he paid for it dearly. Because she was his, she was his Mordecai. She was his.
Yeah. No, I just.
And Martin's like, no further questions. That's great.
No. It's just the whole, well, I'm not going to tell you everything right now. It's like, well, of course you aren't, because nobody does.
Right.
Be straightforward.
She also gives him some advice about picking a race in the class for the next floor, gives them both some advice for that. And then he asks her about the Valte Corporation. Like, what is the Valte Corporation? They made all these tech-based weapons. Like, he doesn't like talk about what Odette, about Odette at all.
Agatha,
sorry. Doesn't talk about Agatha at all, but he said, I want to know more about Valte. She's like, where'd you hear that name? You got to be careful. They're like super powerful. They have a whole fleet of ships parked outside the Borant system, ready to collect on their debt. So that's who the debt is to. That's why
Dog the bounty hunter out there.
Yeah, that's why Borant is going out. Like that's who they owe their asses to. Like they're going out of business, out of power because of their ruling class or their ruling government,
They're fascist. Yeah,
the fascist party, but they're beholden to the Valte Corporation. And that the Kuatine started the crawl early this time to try to generate the funds to pay them.
And that Valte is going to run the next dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
So then this brings up the question is, does Agatha have all this Valte hardware because they've placed her in here to try to ruin the game?
Yeah. Do they have like agents in here? Like, are they trying to dismantle it from the inside? Like, what's going on?
Is Donut really his cat, or is she also part of the Valte?
What the fuck?
Okay, so
foil hat here.
Here's the thing, because Audette says like, yeah, you should probably change races and all this, this advice. But as we've seen from the covers of the next few books, they don't do that. They look still to be a human and a cat.
What do you think about that?
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll find that out probably pretty soon.
Yeah.
Book.
Yeah, okay.
The last thing that Odette says to Carl, there's like one last suggestion that she has, and she doesn't really explicitly state what the suggestion is. She just says, there is something that you might want to do with your class, and it's probably going to be available to Donut because of her stats. But there's a problem. If you pick it, it's going to make somebody really mad.
Okay.
And that's
another
where the
cliffhanger. What do you think?
That's where the book is.
Yeah. It's going to make somebody really mad.
It's going to make Martin mad.
No chance you're going to tell me who that is. Okay.
It's you. You're like, come on. I got to shell out more money. Get the next book. Well, I think that's where we're going to leave it here. We're going to pick back up with the next book. I don't think we've decided what our set of chapters should be. Should we just do the first 10 chapters again?
Yeah, let's start with the first 10.
Yeah, we're going to do the first 10 chapters of book 2. We'll be back with that. We talked about doing a comprehensive look at book 1, but I don't think we're going to do that now. We might do that somewhere down the road, but I think we just want to dive right into the next book. Just keep this ship rolling because I know you want to read it.
Yeah.
I want to read it.
Yeah.
Ribio, not so much.
So down. Yeah, so down.
But I guess the other thing I wanted to kind of touch back on, Martin, is we dragged you into this. You seem to like it.
I do.
And you have... What's your vision for where this is going now that you've read this first book?
Oh, man. I don't have a clue, to be honest with you. I mean, it's one of the things I like most about it.
Yeah.
Because, I read, so many, it takes so many movies and TV shows and books. And there's always a point where for however much fun it is, you start getting toward the end and you're like, well, I know one of 3 things is going to happen. And it's almost kind of like, I wish I could stop before I got to the end because then it's all the same. Here, it was like, wow. The more this goes on, the more anything can happen. Not anything,
right?
Because it's narrowed down enough to where, okay, you get a sense of the logic of it. But there's a lot going on, so I'm here to see what happens. But also, I keep talking about look at the covers of these other books. So there's certain things that are constant. So as everything else expands and gets wilder, I'm wondering how it all stays within its corral to where our main characters stay mostly the same.
When you said, well, maybe not anything can happen, I'm like, oh, you sweet summer child. You sweet boy.
It is wild. Already for this first book, it's been a lot of fun to have you join us because, story structure, so many of the references they're pulling in here, and that we thought if we can get you hooked on this first one, we gotcha.
Yeah. No.
And I do have to say, I do want to reiterate to people, the first 2 books I think are the most normal books. Are the most like mundane. Yeah, I'm going to call this first book kind of mundane.
Oh God.
When it comes to the rest of the series. Okay. They are fun, but a lot of crazier stuff might be in store.
It gets even more ambitious. Like, if you already think wild concept here, yeah, it doesn't relent. And it kind of harkens back to what you were talking about with, if we already saw him face off against a level 93 rage elemental in book 1 as like a level 4 or level 10 guy, how do you keep escalating? And Matt Dinniman does.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see through and through things continue to escalate. Book number 2 is called, what's it? I wrote it down here.
Carl's Doomsday Device.
Carl's Doomsday Device. We're going to jump in.
Oh, no. Carl's Doomsday Scenario.
Doomsday Scenario. There we go.
Sorry. Yeah, we screw up the everything.
Huh. But we do want to say, hey, thank you guys for checking us out and following along. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can check us out and subscribe over on Spotify. If you're just listening to us, we're on all the audio platforms there. And if you would like to pay the daddy tax, you can do so at patreon.com/hellocrawlers. We've actually got a good influx of more listeners. You can join us for $5 a month and you get to hear the exclusive deep crawl episodes that Rubio and I are doing, where we go behind the scenes and talk about what we just covered here within the larger context of all 7 books with full spoilers. We'd love to have you join us and join in on the chat there.
Yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled beyond what we're doing here, then don't do it yet.
Yeah.
No wait till you've gone through the whole series, and then you could go back and there's more conversation to be had after that.
But we also want to shout out our both our benefactors, that's at the $5 level, and then our crawlers. We got Christian Castanon, who's one of our crawlers, so shout out to you. Thank you guys for your support. And one special note we want to make, we're going to take 1 week off before we do jump into book 2. We just want to kind of settle and really internalize what we read and really think about that special bond that Carl and Donut made together. And that was the conclusion of this book.
Okay.
That's what it is.
That's what it's all about.
I mean, everything that happens in this book, but that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Romance novel in a way. Okay. Carl and Donut. But we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.